Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Romine, and this is the Houston Grass Podcast. We are in last week of June, and it is hot and humid. The clouds are already thickening up outside, which has been the case with a lot of June. We've gotten a lot of rain. No talk of drought, at least in our part of the world right now. Central and West Texas could sure use more rain, although they've gotten a fair amount in June as well. As for us, what we have been talking with folks about this month has been gray leaf spot, primarily in the shadier locations, which is usually where we see it. However, something that I'm going to talk about here, tis the season for chinch bugs. When it gets hot and dry, that's usually when we see the chinch bugs. And Bo, that works here with us, said he saw, while he was walking his dog this past week, he saw 5 yards with the start of chinch bugs in them. So it is not unheard of. You get enough dry, hot days, I guess. It didn't rain most of last week. I would have thought it would have taken a little bit longer to dry out from all the rain that we did have earlier in June, but maybe not. He says there were definitely signs of chinch bug activity. So those are the two things for summer that you're looking out for, is primarily a gray leaf spot and chinch bugs. We have been hot and humid, which is kind of the typical. Last month we talked about fertilizing with the super turf and raising your mower height and watching the water amounts. We have been getting some decent help from Mother Nature. I have gone several weeks with turning my irrigation off. I've just kind of been doing it here and there when it goes more than about 5 or 6 days without raining. And I have to be honest, that's primarily been for the flower beds. The grass is in good shape. So that's kind of what we talked about in May. Getting into this month, June, and what we're looking at in July, the dry is bound to come. I would say when we talk with people, just like any gardener and planting any plant, whether we're talking about planting trees, plants, or grass, June, July, and August are the roughest 3 months that you can be planting anything. It's tough on plants that are already established. It's tough to establish new stuff, including grass. This heat is just tough business. What the heat brings about, along with the humidity, is the gray leaf spot that I talked about, especially in the shadier areas. Gray leaf spot, it starts out as, if you look at the individual blades of grass, you'll see little brown dots on it. Usually that's the telltale sign, and it may be no bigger than the size of the end of my pen here, but then that brown spreads and eventually takes over that whole leaf. Eventually you start to lose the grass if left untreated. That said, if it's in a sunnier area, sometimes you can get away without having to treat it, because the sun will eventually, if it'll stop raining and you'll stop watering so much, the sun will basically cook the fungus and it goes away and it's no problem. However, in the shadier areas, if you see it kick off, you really need to go ahead and treat, because it doesn't get as much chance to dry out and get rid of that fungus. So it's a good idea to treat with something like the Heritage G granular fungicide that we sell, or something similar. You just don't want to let it go and see what'll happen, because it can wipe you out. I know that this specifically goes to palmetto. We talk about it. When we sell palmetto this time of year, we try to mention to everybody that it's a good idea in the first week or two to go ahead and treat with Heritage G when you plant the grass. If you're buying palmetto, we figure you're buying it for the shade, so we're going in the shade in the hot part of the summer when gray leaf spot is a real issue. And at the farm, they treat with a fungicide every 30 days, all the grasses, but we never know when it shows up on our lot here where it's going to be in that 30-day cycle. So they might have applied it last week and you're fine, or it might have been 3 weeks since they put it out. So it's a good idea to, when you're planting grass in the shade this time of year, to go ahead and even if it's sunny, it's not going to hurt to go ahead and put out a dose of fungicide, and then again 3 weeks later hit it again, just to keep that stuff at bay. Another reason that these 3 months are tougher, like we mentioned, is the chinch bugs can be an issue. When it does get hot and dry, the chinch bugs are looking for drought-stressed grass to feed on. If it's not raining enough and you're not paying attention, you're on vacation, or you're just hoping it'll rain tomorrow so you don't have to turn that water or that irrigation system on or drag that hose out or whatever it is, and you push it a little too far, and then that's when the chinch bugs show up and they can wipe you out. You need to be on the lookout for chinch chinch bugs, you come home at 5 and you look at the yard, you see those, we call them hot spots. You can see the blades of grass are kind of curled up and have a kind of grayish tint to them, and it looks like it needs a drink of water. And it might be that it just needs a drink of water, and I highly advise that you drag the hose out at that point and give it a good drink of water. Whether or not the chinch bugs are already there, usually if you see those weak looking areas, you can kind of get down on your hands and knees and spread the grass and look down in it, and if there's enough of them in there, you can kind of see them crawling around. They look like little gnats, except the adults, as they cross their wings on their back, it makes the tips of their wings are white, so you see a little white X. There's tricks I've read online. You take a coffee can that's been cut out on both ends and kind of screw it down in the dirt and fill it up with soapy water, and usually the chinch bugs will come to the top, so you can do that as well. But it's usually pretty evident when they show up, and you need to stop them as soon as possible. You need to put out a liquid pesticide. Most of the liquid pesticides out there will take care of it. We sell one called Sayonara. It screws onto the end of the hose. I highly recommend whichever one you do the liquid form so that it does get them immediately, and don't do a granular that it's got to be taken up or watered in or whatever. And you're probably going to have to do a couple of treatments. So gray leaf, spot, chinch bugs. Sometimes we'll see sod webworms. We haven't heard anything about sod webworms yet. In most of my videos I do mention, especially in the summer, what to be looking for. When you go out in the morning and it looks like somebody has taken a weed eater and chopped down, whether it be a small area or sometimes they'll wipe out a bigger area of your yard, and you can kind of look at the tops of the grass and it's kind of jagged. It's not a good clean cut like a lawnmower would do. That and the little brown moths flying up out of your yard too, that's the first sign of them. But the damage that the little worms do when the eggs hatch and the little larvae come out and eat your grass down at night, that's that's when the damage has started. And again, you treat with a liquid pesticide, and usually it's okay. It doesn't hurt anything as long as it's not in a real shady area. When you get in the real shady areas, it's really important that you stop that as soon as possible, because when you shave off all of that leaf tissue, there's nothing left to gather sunlight, and it'll kill the grass. So I'm sorry. That's another thing that you need to be watching out for. I have to say, we haven't talked much about sod webworms in the last few years, but chinch bugs inevitably come around. Gray leaf spot is an issue every summer. So those are, I would say, the biggest things. Installing grass in the summer. People will always ask when is the best time of year to plant grass, and I'll always tell you March, April, and May, followed by fall. The summer is probably the least desirable time to plant grass, but am I not going to plant grass if I put in a new pool, or I built a new house, or I've got an ugly weak spot in my front yard? I'm not going to hesitate to go ahead and plant grass. Is it going to take more water and a little more of a watchful eye during that time? Absolutely. But I'm not going to, just because it's not the perfect time of year, I'm not going to look at an ugly dead spot in my yard or dirt around a swimming pool or something like that. I'm not going to wait till fall. You're just asking for weeds to come up and everything else in the meantime. So it's a good idea to go ahead and sell grass. And people ask us, well, do we quit selling grass after the spring, or do we quit selling grass when it gets cold outside? This is the only thing we do. We sell grass year-round. We are closed the week of Thanksgiving and the week of Christmas. Other than that, we are here and available to get you grass. Is the grass dormant part of the year? Yes. Is summer a rougher time to do it? It is, but we're here to answer your questions, and we're here if you need grass. So there are the ideal times and the less than ideal times, but we're here to help you out in whatever part of the year you need it. The keys to a successful summer install: number one is water. People ask about fertilizer. I think there's a lot of information out there that says when you plant new grass, it's good to follow up with fertilizer. Not from us. Our grass comes with a ton of fertilizer in it from our farm. The reason our grass is head and shoulders above most of our competitors is because our farm does fertilize so frequently throughout the year. It's what makes our grass so thick and green and plush. So you don't need to fertilize immediately after putting out our grass. We tell you about after 4 to 6 weeks, it's a good idea to put a light dose out there just to give it a little kick after that, but it's by no means needs a big dose of fertilizer. The main thing is going to be the water. You need to put that grass out there. You need that good dirt on dirt contact. A lot of people ask, well, can I just lay it on the dead grass that's there? Some of the year you might get away with that. It's not ideal ever, but in the summertime it's even more critical to give it as much of a chance as you can. If you're planting grass specifically in the sun, I would say it's almost impossible to overwater it. That first day you lay the grass down, you don't want to wait till evening, you don't want to wait till the next morning. You want to water as soon as that grass hits the ground and you move out of that area. You want to immediately start water on it for several hours. You need to put down 2 inches of water. That first day you need to put down 2 inches of water, whether we're talking about July or we're talking about January. What you're trying to do with that big first watering, not only to give that grass a little break from being ripped out of the ground when it's 100 degrees and stuff outside, but you're trying to seal that grass, that dirt on dirt. You're trying to make that mud. You're trying to get rid of any air pockets between there. So it's really important that first day to get that 2-inch watering down. And then we say 1 inch of water each day thereafter for the first 2 weeks. Some of the year I would maybe only tell you to do that 1-inch watering for 1 week, and then that second week you can kind of start backing off. That is not the case in the summertime. In the summertime, when it is hot like this, you've got to do that 1-inch watering every day for 2 weeks to get that grass going and give it a chance to fight this heat. Now, I will say that if you're planting grass in the shade, it's absolutely, especially if we're talking about palmetto, and because we talked about the gray leaf spot, you can overwater it. You've got to do the 2-inch watering even if it's in the shade. That first week you're still probably talking 1 inch of water per day, but by that second week you probably got to start backing off. You definitely want to make sure you put out some kind of fungicide. One of the components to kicking off gray leaf spot is excessive water. Obviously, when you're watering it every single day, that's going to boost the chances of that fungus showing up. It is important to walk the line with your watering when you're planting grass in the shade so you don't invite that fungus in. So that is something to be on the lookout for, and always be on the lookout for the start of that gray leaf spot so you can try to get it taken care of. Next thing I want to talk about here is summer grass care tips. So we're talking about established grass. Main thing in the summer is watering. I would say there's a couple of ways to keep an eye on the watering, and then being on the lookout for the gray leaf spot and the chinch bugs. You're not wanting to, as watering goes, you're never wanting to water daily. It's not a good idea to do the 5 minutes once a day or twice a day. You want to water deeply and infrequently to force those roots to chase that water down. That creates a stronger plant and gives that plant more drought tolerance and a number of other things. If you do those infrequent little waterings, those roots stay right up on top, and of course that's going to create a weaker plant. We say you need to water 1 inch of water a week on established grass. I suggest doing that with 2 half-inch waterings per week. When it gets real hot and real dry, we go multiple weeks without any rain. You may have to bump that up to 3 times a week, but most of the year, when the grass is growing, grass is green, you need to put out 1 inch of water a week. How do you tell? The best and most thorough way is to take multiple rain gauges and stick them out in different areas of the yard and see what it takes. How long does it take to put out a ½ inch of water in this area with this segment of irrigation, or in this area, because different heads put out different amounts of water. And so whether we're talking about an irrigation system or we're talking about a sprinkler, put a couple of rain gauges out, see how long it takes you to put out that ½ inch of water, and then you'll know. The other thing that you can do, and I will say that what they do at the farm sometimes, is if you've got a long screwdriver, if you stick that screwdriver in the ground and it goes in relatively easily and comes out with some mud on it and stuff like that, obviously you're good. You don't need to water. However, if it's tougher to get that screwdriver in and or it comes out and it's pretty clean, it's time to kick on the water. It's just so critical this time of year to be paying attention to that water. And the reason it's so critical is because of those chinch bugs. A lot of the year, when the temperature is more moderate and it's a little more forgiving, it's not going to hurt to kind of drought stress the grass a little bit every once in a while. It does keep the fungus away. It keeps the brown patch away some in the fall. But in the summer, if you do it, those chinch bugs can show up and they can wipe your yard out overnight, and that obviously is costly. The only way to fix that damage is if we come in there or you go in there. You got to scrape all that grass out. Chinch bugs, they kill the grass. There is no coming back from chinch bugs in an area. It might not kill your whole yard. If you don't treat them and stop them, they will. But it's really important to stay on top of that watering. For the main reason, like I said, is the chinch bugs. So do be mindful of that and keep an eye on it, whether you're using rain gauges or the screwdriver trick or whatever. But 1 inch of water per week is what you got to have. Fertilization and weed control. You need the next dose of pre-emergent. We're past our summer one. We were looking at fall before we're talking about pre-emergent, but fertilizer, we are using the Super Turf right now, which is the 19410. That it's the silver bag and it's got the slow release nitrogen in it. That way it doesn't burn your grass. The hotness of the nitrogen won't burn your grass because it's coated in a material that allows it to break down slower to be administered to the soil, and so you don't get that burn from the nitrogen because of this heat. However, I believe on the schedule it says late May, June is what we're talking about for the Super Turf, but you can apply that later in the summer as well. You just have to be mindful with any fertilizer that you're putting out as it does get hotter like this to be sure. As always, when you put out fertilizer, you have to water it in within 24 hours. It's even more important that you thoroughly water it in this time of year, because if you put it out there and it just gets a little light watering or it gets a heavy dew, all it takes is a little bit of moisture to activate that fertilizer, and if you don't thoroughly water it in, that nitrogen will burn that grass up in a hurry and you'll have to replace it. So you want to be careful about that. When you're fertilizing, always follow up with a 1/2 inch watering. So one of your weekly waterings needs to happen the day of or day after that you put fertilizer out. As mowing goes, we talked about this last month, you never want to cut off more than 1/3 of the leaf tissue on the blade per mowing. And so a lot of times I have to say it's an absolute no-no to cut your grass every 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, even once a week, a lot of times when this grass, especially if you fertilize and you're staying on top of your waterings, you're probably ideally mowing the grass every 5 days, because if you actually measured, that's probably about when you're cutting that third off. When you wait every 7 days, you may be cutting closer to half off. Not the end of the world, but no matter how much you're cutting off, it's always very important to follow up. I time my irrigation system. I know what day the guys are coming to my office to mow and my house to mow, and I make sure that the irrigation system is set to go off the very next morning. That takes away some of that stress that mowing in this heat causes. If you follow it up with a good watering, that is always a real good idea. Another thing that's important is that whether you're mowing your own yard or you've got guys that are mowing it, they keep those blades sharp. With dull blades, it kind of rips the grass. You can look across the top of the grass, the individual blades. If they're kind of jagged, you'll see it the next day. You'll usually see the tan tips, and it creates kind of a tan jagged top. That's not good. It opens the grass up to being more susceptible to disease and stuff like that. You want a good clean cut, like you take a sharp pair of scissors and cut that grass off. So having sharp blades helps a lot. So be mindful of that, whether you're doing your own yard or you're having someone do it. That is kind of all I have as far as tips and tricks for the month, things to be looking out for. It is just fine to plant grass this time of year. Is it the ideal months? No, but again, if you've got a project, it's much better than just leaving a big empty slate that's going to be susceptible to weeds and stuff in the meantime. Please call us if you have any questions about any of this. Send us pictures is usually the best way. If we're actually looking at it, that helps a lot. I want to remind everybody and mention that our grass comes from my family's farm down in Bay City. that's been doing this since a couple of years before I was born. My dad made a name in this business by differentiating himself by selling top quality grass. People ask how we do that and why our grass may be $10 or $20 a pallet more than some of my competitors. It's because we have our inputs, plain and simple. We have more guys per acre. We spend more on fertilizer per acre, more on fungicides and herbicides and all that than our competitors. It shows up. Look at our reviews here on the website. Look at Google. Those are honest to goodness reviews that our customers leave us all the time. It's because our farm does such a great job growing the grass. There is just none better out there. It's the only place that we get our grass for that reason. It's because we can control the quality. It's what they've made a name on, and it's what we here at Houston Grass have made our name on. People expect perfection when they come here. We're getting into our 21st year here now. It's why people keep coming back. Thank you for listening. Give us a call if you have any questions, and we'll talk again here at end of July. Thank you.